Okay. This is our last topics class, or concepts class.
What do we have next week?
Well, next week, Monday, is Erev Tisha B'Av, which means one of two things. Either Mashiach will be teaching us, or I will not be able to teach you. And then the day after that, Tuesday, is Tisha B'Av, which either means one of two things. Either Mashiach will be teaching us, or I will not be able to teach you. So, and then there's Wednesday. See how that works? So, we're going to we talk about a pretty central concept that's found in Chassidus. We will obviously not do it justice in the allotted time, but the goal here is threefold. One, to get a sense of this concept. Two, to appreciate the relevance of the concept. And three, to appreciate that the concept is by far not so simple. In other words, at the end of the class, if you think you've understood this whole concept very well, then I have failed. Why do I want to end on something where you leave with a sense that it's more complicated?
So you don't want to keep learning.
That's right. See? I'm very transparent. Or you're brilliant. Or both.
That's not one. Thank you.
I'm not so transparent?
No, you can be transparent, but I'm also brilliant.
Right, I'm saying that both could be true. At least one of those things is true.
Right.
Okay, so the concept in the Chassidic vernacular, in the original, gets called Sovev and Memale. Sovev and Memale. Those are the Hebrew, or actually Aramaic words. If one of the shluchos could write them on the board so that everybody can see them.
Where is that?
Okay. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go through where these terms come from, before what they mean. Okay. So in the Zohar, the Zohar is a statement where it says, he, that's in English, by the way. The original Aramaic is Ihu. Ihu means he, meaning God. Sovev kol almin, which literally means he surrounds all worlds. The Ihu memale kol almin, and literally means he fills all the worlds. So these are verbs in a sentence, right? So, right, if I said there's a concept called, run and eat. Now, running and eating can't just exist on their own, right? Someone has to be doing the running, right? And if they're running from one place to another. If someone is eating, there's someone who is eating. If the eating is occurring, there's someone who's eating, there's what they're eating, right? So implicit in these two words, even though they're often just thrown around as nouns, they're really not nouns, they're verbs. It's describing the way God relates to the world. There is how he is sovev, which literally means surrounds the world, and memale, which literally means how he fills the world. Okay. So now, we're going to do an advanced Chassidic test right now. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Is sovev the same thing? Listen carefully to the question. Is sovev the same thing as memale?
No.
You want to explain?
Oh, sorry.
And you said no, like you were so sure, so you must have an explanation.
Like surrounding something is not being inside of there and filling
Yeah,
it
but is
with-
surrounding a thing?
No.
No, it's not. It's not a thing, is it? Right? For instance, I have a pitcher here, right? The pitcher is a thing. The water is a thing. The pitcher is surrounding the water, right? Yeah? But surrounding is not an actual thing, right? There's no actual thing in reality called surrounding, right? Surrounding is the relationship of the pitcher to the water, right? This is very, very important. Most people get the answer to this question wrong because they accept the premise of the question. They treat these as if they are things. Are they things? No, they are. And when we turn everything into nouns. You ever heard this idea like nouns are person, place, and thing?
Yeah.
It's not true. What's the other thing that nouns are?
Ideas.
Ideas. And anytime you think about something, you turn it into idea, and then it becomes a noun, right? In reality, surrounding is not a noun. Surrounding is a relationship between two things, right? Filling is a relationship between two things, right? But when I think about it, I turn it into a noun in my mind. So the thing we have to remember at the end of the day is there's only two things here. There's God and the world. There's God and the world, and God relates to the world in a way that in one sense he surrounds the world, and in another sense he fills the world. Whatever those terms mean, filling and surrounding. But there are not two separate things called filling and surrounding. For instance, I am now teaching you, right? So am I sharing or withholding?
Sharing.
Both. Think about it. Do I know more on this topic? If I start saying everything I know on the topic, I mean, let's discount the fact that you can't there's limitations in speaking. You can only say one thing at a time, right? But let's say I'm going to just share everything I know on the topic right now. Would you be getting a lot of information, or would you be getting a lot of confusion? It probably depends, right? Some people maybe more, some people less, right? Now, on the other hand, if I withhold some of my knowledge, I start with one basic point and work from there then. Right? So sharing and withholding, right? When you abstract them and talk about them like two separate things, but they're not two separate things. There's me relating to you, and that relation has an element which can be described as withholding, and an element can be described as sharing, and they're actually not even in conflict, right? They're kind of two facets of the same phenomena, right? Does that make sense? So when we say that Hashem is Sovev Kol Almin, he surrounds all the worlds, and then he's Memale Kol Almin, he fills those, whatever these terms mean, which I haven't gotten to yet, what we have to understand is these are not two things. They're not even two different ways of relating. They are two aspects of how God relates to the world. And if we think about it a little bit deeper, we would even understand how really it's like the sharing and withholding. They kind of come as a package deal. It's the same thing here. Good? Now that I've said all that, the rest of the class is going to be about contrasting Sov and Mali as if they're two separate things. Because our minds think in nouns, right? If I want to contrast eating and running, right, I start treating them as if they're things. Even though in reality, they're not things, right? So we're going to talk in the rest of the class. There's actually this thing called Sovev, and there's this thing called Memale, right? But really always keep in the back of your mind, we're not talking about things, we're talking about Hashem, God, has a way of relating to the world. That way of relating to the world can be described in one sense as Sovev or surrounding, and in another sense as Memale or filling. And when one appreciates these deeply enough, they see there's actually not two different things, but really one. And not even one thing at all, it's just one relationship. Good? Okay. Now, tell me something that you know about somebody else. Right? You need to volunteer to tell me something about someone else. But it has to be something about them. Like, you can't tell me like they're wearing a particular article of clothing. That's not about them.
I want to share?
Yeah.
Nomi has 2 brothers.
False.
Nomi has
Let's even say that that's true. I don't know if it's true, but let's just say that's true.
She didn't pull that number out anyway.
Let's just say that's true, right? That means her parents conceived two boys in addition to herself.
Yeah.
So it's the result of her parents' activity. It's not something about her. I want something about her. Or it doesn't her. It could be anybody. I don't care who it's about. I want something about them. It's not something about her.
Oh, so am I sure something about Nomi?
It doesn't have to be Nomi. It could be something about anybody, just not you. Something about somebody else, not you. It has to be about them.
You're a rabbi.
I'm a rabbi. Okay, I will go with that. How do you know?
Oh, we have a lot of trust.
What?
Says so.
Okay, well, now when you say I'm a rabbi, you mean like I have a title? Like a piece of paper that says somewhere that I'm a rabbi? Is that what you meant? I'm asking, what did you mean? What did you mean?
I don't know.
You don't know what you meant, that doesn't count. We have to start from the beginning. Just tell me something about somebody
Nomi
else.
has pink nails.
What?
Nomi has pink nails.
No.
No.
It's
No.
not about her, that's about her nails.
No, no. There's just pink nail polish on her nails.
Right.
Something about her. She's a person. Tell me something about her as a person.
Nomi can be nice.
Okay, there we go. Nomi can be nice. How do you know? Thank you. There we go.
I don't know. Through past experience.
Past experience of
I
what?
don't know.
Of interacting.
And you've seen what?
Niceness.
You've seen her be nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
You've seen her be nice.
Sometimes.
Okay. So since you've seen her be nice, you conclude that there's some aspect of her which is the capacity to be nice. What are you doing?
I'm trying to take a picture of her while she's laughing.
Okay. Fine.
You
Okay.
made a feature.
Now, how long did you have to observe her, interact with her, to figure out that she has this quality of being nice somewhere within her?
I feel like the longer it's been, the less.
No.
Guys, that's what he's asking.
That's not what I'm asking. You have to
Probably
answer the question.
Within a few hours of meeting her.
Within a few hours. So let's say, within a few hours. Can I tell you a story?
Yes.
Okay, this is an important story. The names will be changed to preserve the people's identities, even though this particular person wouldn't particularly care. So we had a bacher in the men's program many, many, many years ago. We'll call him, for lack of.
We know his name is Mendel.
We'll go with Mendel. His name wasn't Mendel. Let's go with Mendel, right?
Okay.
And Mendel came from Brooklyn, and he spoke like he came from Brooklyn.
Oh, okay.
And so there's a rabbi in the men's program, not myself, who at the Fabrengens, whenever he wanted to point out that somebody was doing something wrong and really needed to improve in that, he would find that thing in Mendel and talk about how Mendel really needs to shape up in this regard, and Mendel's not doing good, and Mendel really needs... And he talked to Mendel. And this went on for a while. And Mendel really liked this. This is how this worked. And one day, a new bacher came to the men's program, and the rabbi who's Fabrengen did this thing to... And this person got very offended on Mendel's behalf. You know, there's people waiting to get offended on everyone else's behalf. He's like, "How can you do that and insult somebody and just point out their flaws in public?" And this rabbi is actually very, very gentle. And the last thing in his mind would ever offend anybody, not me. Okay, clearly not me. This rabbi, like, if he realized he maybe when someone uncomfortable, gets very uncomfortable, and he like looks like he has a deer in the headlight look, and he says, "But Mendel's a mushal. Mendel's an analogy." Like, everybody understood that. Like, Mendel liked the attention, and you just find the thing in Mendel. It wasn't really about Mendel. And then Mendel gets up and goes, "Yeah, I'm a mushal. I'm an analogy." But,
Yes, sir.
so, anyway, it's not about you. We just need to make it more concrete. Okay, a few hours. So let's say, for whatever strange reason, that after about 45 minutes, you never saw her again. Would you ever know that she could be nice? It's quite likely that not, right?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's extrapolate from that principle and ask ourselves, how well do you know Naomi then? Because aren't you just seeing her in a very limited context?
But you asked for one thing.
I know. Now I'm extrapolating. Given that you've only seen her in a limited context, right? And remember, if you only saw her for 45 minutes, you would not come to the conclusion of saying that she's nice or has that capacity to be nice because you wouldn't have seen it. But fortunately, you were stuck around for a few hours and you saw it. Well, you've only known her for a fixed amount of time, whatever it is, and only in very specific situations, whatever they are. And therefore, do you really know her? I'm not saying what you know is false. I'm just saying whatever picture you have of her is kind of... it's based on experience, and your experience is, by definition, quite limited.
Right.
And what happens when a person takes a small sample of something and assumes that the entire picture is like that? Imagine, like, for instance, you watched one scene of a movie, and from that you concluded what the entire movie was like. It wouldn't work very well, right?
No.
Okay. So do you really have any like genuine sense of like who she is as a person?
No, so we can't conclude she's nice.
No, we conclude that she contains niceness within her, right? We could conclude that, right? Right? Because she's exhibited niceness.
Right.
But beyond that, it's like an open question, right? Like, where is the place of that niceness, you know? How much does it fully characterize her? Like, even if you saw her being nice all the time, right? Maybe she's only nice in that particular context, right? Maybe outside that context, she's like not nice at all. We don't know.
Yeah, maybe she's just
Right.
maybe she's just mean.
Now let's go further. Do you know yourself?
No, maybe that was two questions.
Or do you only know yourself after a finite period of time in very specific contexts? Same thing is true, right?
That's crazy. I'm so confused. You know yourself.
Ask yourself, how do you know yourself?
That's what he was.
You know yourself because...
But I've always been with myself.
Really? Let me ask you a question. If we went back to you about, say, 4 years ago and asked you how to describe who you would be, what your personality would be like, your values, as they are now, 4 years later, do you think you would get it right?
But that's not myself, that's my future self. I know myself that I've existed.
Yeah, but you know there's you are yourself. But knowledge is like having a sense of. We surprise ourselves all the time. Right? Take a person, put them in a totally new situation that they're not used to. Not only are you going to be surprised by what they do, they could be surprised by what they do. If you have a piece of glass and you never ever attempted to break it, would you ever know the glass is fragile? From looking at it? In fact, there's glass which isn't that fragile, right? There's bulletproof glass, right? So, how do we know other people? How do we know ourselves? Because there are specific things, situations, activities, events, right, in which we express ourselves, which we interact, and through that we become known. We become known to others, and that's also how we become known to ourselves. How do you know what you're good at?
By doing it.
By doing it. And how do you know that you're good at it?
Because other people are like one.
The way you know that you're good at something is because other people relate to you as being good at it when you do it. Think about this, right? If you, let's say, there's some unknown activity, and it takes you 30 hours to master that activity, are you good at it? Well, if most people master it in 20 minutes, then you're really bad at it. And most people master it in 20 years, you're really good at it, right? So you need someone other to kind of give you a standard, like, oh, I'm really good at it. Like, first off, you don't even know how well you do it, and then whether that's considered good or bad also is like, we don't have like this automatic real sense of our own selves. Certainly no automatic sense of others. Okay. Does this idea make some kind of intuitive sense? Okay, now let's take that idea, keep that in the back of our minds, and let's go forward. Okay. The body is divided into several different organs. We're going to focus on a few of them. The eyes, the ears, the feet, and the hands, and the mouth. I think that's sufficient for our purposes. Okay? Now, why is it good that you have eyes? To see. It shouldn't be hard. Why is it good that you have ears? To hear. Why is it good that you have hands? No, you're getting trickier.
To be able to do things.
To be able to do things. Okay. Why is it good that you have legs?
To go places.
To be able to go places. Okay, let's stop and understand all these things, right? There's things that are valuable in reality out there beyond yourself, and if you can't see them, you won't know about them. If you can't hear them, you won't know about them, right? If you don't have hands, you cannot manipulate the world around you. If you don't have legs, you can't get to the other places where you might have values, the things to do. Good? Or get away from places where you shouldn't be. Good? Now, there is a chassidic saying that is going to contradict what we're about to learn, but we're going to ignore that for right now. Why do you need a mouth? Why is it good to have a mouth? Right. So happy you said that.
Oh, why?
Because some people say to eat.
Oh.
I was thinking that.
That's not really why you need a mouth. That you just need, you don't really need a mouth. A mouth is really about talking. Now, there's a chassidic saying which says that people actually have mouths in order to be quiet. But we're going to set that aside right now. Okay, now here's the thing. Who benefits from the eyes? Your body or your soul?
Depends what you use it.
Well, didn't we just say that you use your eyes to see?
Yes.
And who's doing the seeing?
Your soul.
Your soul's doing the seeing. Can a lump? You want to hear a cool story?
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you? I mean, I don't. You don't. You can say no. It's fine.
No, I do want to hear.
Okay. So, well, I wasn't planning on saying it, but then as you're talking, sometimes things come to you. Like,
I'm excited.
So, one of my sons, was sitting with me a few years ago, and he made the unfortunate mistake of making a comment that I disagreed with. Something to the effect. This is in a conversation in Hebrew, but he said something to the effect that brains think. You know, the brain, it thinks, and I said the brain does not think. Brains don't think, and he said yes, they do. Actually, he didn't say it like that. He had more respect, but. And I asked him, do you know what a brain is? And he said, yeah, it's here. I said, I didn't ask you if you know where it is. I asked you know what it is. And he realized he did not know what it is. So I said, your brain is a piece of meat. I went then and showed him pictures of brains. Human brains, cow brains, people eating cow brains. It's meat. Slightly different texture, different flavor, but meat.
Right.
So now he was very confused because he's like, but meat can't think. And I said, right, that was my point. Meat doesn't have the ability to think. So he says, so then why do people say that you think with your brain? And I said, well, you know, when you pick up a pen to write, right, you're using the pen, but the writing is not really attributable to the pen. So the soul thinks, and it's using the brain. Then he said, well, clearly there can't be any atheists then. I said, how did you get to that conclusion?
How old is he?
11-ish. So then I said, well, clearly, since the brain is meat, and meat can't think, you have a soul. And once you have a soul, like, to go from there to God is not a big jump. It's like, okay, that'll be a conversation for another time. Anyway, the point is, seeing, right, is a psychological phenomenon. It is a subjective experience where a being comes to a particular kind of an awareness of things beyond themselves. None of those words have any meaning when you're describing a physical object. Right? And so that's something of the soul. The soul sees, the soul hears. Now it gets a little trickier. What about walking and moving things? So, what was the point of hands? That you could move stuff, right? Manipulate stuff. When you move stuff, what makes movement in the context that we're talking about is that it is purposeful. In other words, like this. I want this water in my mouth. Right? I want external reality to conform to my will. And my hand can make it happen. And when we speak about movement, what we mean is that. We mean is the ability to control your environment. So if there's no, right, that notion of controlling your environment, that means having a will, having a desire, wanting to have things conform to you. None of that is any real meaning to the body. That's all of the soul. So the power of movement in the hand is fulfilling and actualizing the will of the soul to control the environment. And then the same thing. In this sense, what are the legs for? Is to move you from place to place. Where there's a sense that you are here, and the question, should I be here? Should I not be here? Right? So all these things are really meaningful phenomena in terms of the soul. In terms of the body, I mean, it doesn't really matter so much if the cups are here or cups are there to the plastic, right? They're just physically present in one place or another. Make sense? And speech, I think, is obvious, right? Speech is about one person connecting to another person, right? Corpses don't talk to each other. But, okay?
What do you say is only like you know, the automatic verse? What's the one? Somatic?
What? No. We could spend a lot of time on this. The discussion about the limbs and the soul and how it works and the nervous system, all that is very, very well developed in Chassidus. And we are not going into it. We're just going to limit it to these 5 things. Okay, so now, what do I know?
Body function comes from the soul.
Yes. But I specifically am picking ones that are easy for us to understand for the purposes of this exercise. In other words, there are ones that are not useful for this exercise without a lot of analysis, and we don't want to do that. So what do we now know about the soul? What do we know about the soul?
It operates with our limbs.
And therefore we know the soul is a seeing entity. It sees.
It sees, it hears.
It talks.
It has a will.
It has a will to control its environment, and it has a will to locate itself in different places, right?
Yeah.
And all of those things manifest in the body, right? So we can know quite a bit about the soul because when we see things taking place in the limbs of the body that are clearly not of the body, right? So what is that? That is the soul coming through the body. That is what we say the soul is filling the body. What do we mean filling the body? What we mean to say is that the body becomes the medium of expression for the soul. The soul is a seeing being, and that's expressed through the functioning of the organ known as the eyes. The soul is a speaking entity, and that's expressed through the fact that you have a mouth. So far, so good? Okay. Now, if that's the case, that would mean that the body and soul can be mapped onto each other. Now, do you know what a map is? Okay, so most people have seen a map, and most people have not thought too much about what a map is. In mathematics, there's a concept called mapping. Mapping is where you say how one thing corresponds to another. So if you have so for instance, I'll give you an example. If I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for the rest of time, okay? And I count 1, if I go 1, 1.5, 1.25 for the rest of time. Yeah? Are those the same set of numbers? No. But what mathematicians will say is that they have a one-to-one mapping, which as I can actually set up a system where every single one of the first numbers corresponds to one of the other numbers. So they're kind of equivalent, right? When you have a physical map, right, you have a bunch of symbols, and each symbol corresponds to a feature of the terrain, right? That's what mapping is. They're not the same thing, but everything here corresponds to something over there. Make sense?
Yeah.
So it follows then, based on this idea, that everything that the soul and the body have this kind of mapping. Everything in the soul and everything in the body correspond to each other. So far, so good? Okay. So, can you use the body now to know the soul?
Well, if that principle is correct, then yeah.
If that principle is correct. Okay. Why are you saying the principle may not be correct?
Oh, I'm just saying. I don't know or not.
Because you always change it.
No, because let's think about it.
Just
Okay.
leaving it open.
Let's think about something. So okay, let's go through a few things. Let's start. Let's start. So okay. We have eyes for seeing, ears for hearing, mouth for speaking, hands for moving things around, feet for moving yourself around. Okay?
Right.
Can someone now list some other some other functions of the soul, other soul things, and we'll see if we can find corresponding parts of the body. And we'll go back. What?
Feelings, like emotional.
Feelings, emotions. That corresponds to the heart. Don't ask why right now. We could go into it, but not for right now. Okay? Let's keep going. Give me another one. What?
Soul smell.
Nose.
How does the soul smell?
I don't know. How does the soul see? Do you know how that works? Okay. We're not saying how it does. We're just saying a corpse doesn't smell. Right? This is
hard for me to comprehend because
this-
my mind is like.
this is very simple. Imagine a corpse.
It feels like Dora the Explorer when like the backpack comes out with like eyes on it. Do you know what I mean? Like that's.
Don't do imagining.
I know. I think this is why.
Do you know why? Do you know why there are people who say you shouldn't learn Kabbalah?
Why?
One of the reasons is that certain Kabbalistic works are written using metaphoric, symbolic language. Right? One of my favorite examples is a statement of the Zohar where it says that Leah, right, remembering the four mothers? So Leah's feet penetrate the skull of Rachel.
What?
Right, see? So now, if you understand that it's all symbolic language to mean something, then it's fine. But if you actually start imagining what that's like, it's disturbing. Okay, so don't imagine things. It's not. No, you have a corpse.
Right.
Okay, and now think about a corpse, a rock, water, right? All these things, right? They're just physical. And then think about a person. Okay, what are things of a person that aren't in the corpse? And so we've gotten through a few of them, right?
Right.
Any other ones? Smelling? Anything else? If I take this pitcher, and I throw it very, very hard against the floor, it might break, right?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. Is it possible it'll put itself back together afterwards?
No.
If a person falls on the floor and breaks, is it possible that they would their body puts itself back together?
Yeah.
Healing?
What does that correspond to?
What? What?
And
Wait, you're saying that there's a body part.
No, the body, but breaking is breaking physical things can break also.
Soul doesn't break?
Soul doesn't break.
Why? Because a corpse could break.
A corpse could break. Yeah. So the healing, which part of the soul which part of the body does that correspond to? Yeah. This is interesting, right?
It depends. If you break your bone and the bone's healing, if you get a cut.
Yeah, but which is the healing organ? There's a seeing organ. There's a speaking organ. There isn't one, right?
Tissue.
Each organ has its own healing properties.
So the whole body just heals. So now it got a little more interesting. It turns out, I was like, let's just stop. It turns out, it turns out, right, that certain things of the soul don't correspond to a particular part of the body, like healing. Okay? If someone touches you, can you feel it? Right? Now, here's the thing. If someone touches your hand, or someone touches your shoulder, or someone touches your chin, right, you can feel it.
Right.
So you can't. Why is it wrong to say hands are for touching? I mean, they're very good at it, but they're not uniquely designed to touch. You can touch with other things.
Right.
You can feel, right? We feel texture and temperature. That's pretty all over the place, right? Right? It's like I can't see what's in the back of me, right? And I can't hear with my hand, right?
Right.
But pretty much every part of me, for the most part, has some degree of sensation of sensing pressure, temperature, texture.
So
Right.
the nerves are responsible for it, not your hands.
And the nerves aren't a particular organ in the body, right? They're kind of spread out throughout the whole thing. Okay, anything else? Okay, so now we have two categories of things. We've got things of the soul. We've got things of the soul that have a specific part of the body that they fit with. Then we have things of the soul that just are present in the whole body.
Right.
Okay. Good?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a sense of your own personal identity?
You're gonna
No, I'm asking you, when you say I, do you ever get confused of who you're talking about when you say I? No, you have a pretty clear sense, right? It's fun to do with kids when they first learn pronouns. Because it's very funny. Pronouns are actually a very profound, sophisticated idea, and kids pick them up really quickly.
Right.
So you say to the kids, what's your name? I'm Mayor. I'm Mayor? No, I'm Mayor. I'm Mayor.
Right.
And it's very funny. It's but this is very profound. This sense of I am me, and that is a distinct being from you, independent of whatever confusing things my father tries to trip me up with. It's clearly I am me, and you're not. Mm-hmm. Okay, which part of your body has that? Which part of the body? Do you have a special? This is the identity part of my body.
Identity? No,
Is that the identity?
I guess not.
Is that is that located throughout your body, the healing and the sensation?
No. So now we have the third.
Now the third category. This is getting weird, right? It's it turns out some things of the soul have this very precise corresponding mapping to the parts of the body. Right. Certain things sometimes just manifest in the body as a whole, and certain things are clearly are associated with the body because when I walk out of the room, my sense of me being me is also not in the room anymore, right?
Yeah.
But beyond that, just kind of being located in the body, I can't find the part of the body that's. So it turns out now this: if I'm going to use the body to try and get a sense of what the soul is, how effective is that going to be? If I'm going to look at the body and see what is manifest in the body.
Well, not effective because we have 3 different categories.
Right. So first off, things where there's specific bodily functions that are more than just mere physicality, like seeing and talking. Okay, that I can get a sense of the soul there, right? But once we talk about let's talk about healing, yeah? The body heals. That's because of the soul. Tell me about the soul now. In other words, tell me about the soul from the fact that there's healing taking place. Right? If a person trips and they scrape themselves, it heals. That healing quality of the flesh is because of the soul. Okay, great, fine. So I can tell there's something more than just the flesh there. There's the soul, which is responsible for this property of being able to heal. Tell me about the soul from that property. What do we now know about the soul from this phenomenon of the body healing itself? Like from the eyes, right? I can tell the soul is a seeing being, right?
Right.
From the hands, it's like a being that wants to control its environment, right? What can I tell from the healing?
Has perseverance.
It has perseverance? What do you mean by that?
It wants to get better.
It knows when it's like hurting and repair that.
It can adapt.
It can adapt.
It's better.
The body's getting better.
It can repair things.
It can repair things. Okay, it can repair things.
So is soul.
Right. Okay.
I don't think you like that answer.
No, but here's if I have a hot cup of water, I know something heated it, right? What heated it?
You don't know.
I don't know. I don't even know if the thing that heated it is hot, right? Could have been a microwave, which isn't even hot. Like I know there's something that can heat water. Well, great. Okay. So I look at the body and it's healing itself. Corpses, physical things can't heal themselves, so there's something here which can make things heal. What do I know about it? It can make something heal. I'm just saying the same thing in other words. I'm not getting anywhere. In other words, and then if we talk about the sense of your sense of your own individual being, your own identity, right? That I am not something else, I'm not someone else, right? Like that. Let's be honest. That doesn't come through the body at all. If I was a real skeptical person, I'd say, I don't even know that you even have one. I know I have one from my own personal experience. Maybe you don't really have a sense of yourself.
Right. You
And even within myself, it's not like it's located in a particular part of my body.
Right.
It just seems to be associated with my body because when I leave a room, it goes wherever that body seems to be going. So the body turns out to be, on the one hand, a really good medium to figure out the soul in certain respects, and a really bad medium in other respects. That's because the soul both fills the body and surrounds the body. In other words, in one sense, the body is a good medium for the soul to express itself. And in the other hand, the soul's relationship with the body is not that the body is a medium for the soul to express itself at all. So if I examine my life through what's happening in my body, I can come to know a few things. I can know that my soul is a seeing being, as being that manipulates things, a being that seeks to move around, right? The being that can hear, that communicates, right? Those are all things about my soul that I know, right? And I have a sense of what those things mean. Right? I know that seeing and hearing are very different things. I know what those are. I've experienced them. Healing, I don't even know what healing is. I can't see the effect of healing. Right? It was broken and now it's better. But what actually is the soul doing? And how does it do that? And what is that all about? And the answer is, I don't really know. And then you go deeper, the sense of, that's not even found, that can't even discern that in the body at all. So would it be wise of me to use the body as the sole framework for understanding the soul?
No.
It would not be wise. Would it be wise to discount the body as a framework for understanding the soul? No. Make sense? Let's go back to God now. There's a world. Tell me something about God. Not a dogmatic belief, something that we can know about God from the world. And don't say, well, he could create it, because that doesn't really tell us anything about him, right? Yes, the world is the kind of thing that requires a creator, and the creator clearly has the ability to create, otherwise you're going to be the creator. You're not saying anything about God. Tell me something about God. We want hints.
He's forgiving. Oh, go ahead.
God is beautiful. Good. Forgiving.
Yeah.
Good. What else?
He can be mean.
What?
He can be mean.
Nope.
And
What?
why can't he be? I mean, to us it seems to be. But
Love it.
him
Let me ask you a question.
right?
Are there people whose eyes are broken and they can't see?
Yeah.
Should we conclude that the soul is blind?
Whoa.
Should we?
No.
If you have a world-class piano player and God forbid someone chops off his hands, has he stopped being within himself a world-class piano player?
No.
Or he's still a world-class piano player who can't play the piano because his hands are gone? In other words, if we know that God is merciful because the world is a medium for that mercy, what happens if the world is not being a good medium for the mercy? Then there's an absence of mercy. Okay, that's very unpleasant, but that doesn't reflect back on him. Any more than a person who doesn't have functional eyes means the soul is blind. The soul isn't blind. The eyes are broken. Make sense?
What do you like bring from day and night,
What?
like physical aspects of the world?
It's a good question. But if we examine the world and we really ponder it deeply, right, could we come to know God?
I guess part of it.
In some sense.
Right. But not all.
Can you come to know your soul from your body? To an extent. You know that your soul is a seeing being. You know, from within the body itself. You know your soul is a seeing being. You know your soul is a hearing being. You know your soul communicates. You know your soul, right? These are all things that manifest through the body, and you have very distinctly and concretely. Now, what if a person, God forbid, was born blind, with no functional eyes? Would they even know their soul is a visual being that can see? They would never know that, right? But if they were wise, they would realize that if there's no place for something in their body, either because there isn't, or alternatively there is but it's broken, doesn't always indicate that same thing is lacking in the soul. Maybe it's lacking, maybe it's not. They would no way knowing, right? That makes sense? So we can know quite a bit about God. And the deeper a person is, the more they can realize. But what we're always knowing about God is the way the world can be a medium to reveal him. Meaning that there are things in the world that kind of map on to godly qualities. Right? So when a mother holds her infant, right, and feels this kind of unconditional compassion and love, right? That is a conduit for something of God, because that is actually that notion of caring and nurturing for a being unconditionally without them having to deserve it actually stems from, that's a godly thing, right? And our souls are seeing beings, so our bodies have eyes. God has this unconditional, compassionate, nurturing quality to him, and he creates the world with beings that can exhibit some of that. So there's parts of the world that kind of map onto certain godly qualities.
What do we deduce from like wicked people and stuff like that?
What do you deduce from a person whose hands are gone? What do you deduce about their soul?
Like why do we judge it that way? Like what we're doing with those things are
It's very simple. It's very, very simple. When a person sees something negative, if we unpack that, what they're really saying is this could be better. This could be improved upon, right? Okay. What's the basic relationship between the created world and the creator? Of the two, which one requires improvement?
created world.
The created world, right? Like that's the whole basic. That's like the basic, right? So God creates something that is less than perfect. So if I see the less than perfection in the world, that doesn't reflect back on God. When I see things that are as they should be, things that have a goodness to them, that reflects back on
What
God.
does perfect mean?
We could debate that. And by the way, that's and the reason why we debate that is because sometimes our minds are so limited that by seeing one thing as good, we can't understand how the other thing could also be good. Right? Now, I could see how justice is very good, and you could see how compassion is very good, and I can't see how there can be room for compassion with justice, and you can't see how there can be room for justice with compassion, and then we have problems, right? But those are features and limitations of our minds. So this whole way of coming to relate to God is because, on some level, God finds or creates the world in such a way that things in the world serve as a medium to reveal him. Like there's different limbs in the body that serve to reveal or to express certain faculties, certain aspects of the soul. And that's what the Zohar means when it says that God is memale, he fills the world. Now, even with our own selves, is it wise to conclude that what your body can express is the sum totality of your soul? And when we reflect on ourselves, it becomes fairly obvious that that's not the case. Like there's things in our body that we can see the effect and don't even have a sense of what it is, like healing. And then there are things that don't even have any bodily manifestation at all. So using the body to really have a sense of the soul. So now I'm stuck because I have to simultaneously accept that the body is a very good way of getting to know what the soul is and is also a bad way, and those are not contradictory. If I were to say you can never know your soul from your body, that would be a lie, because there's things about the soul that I can know through the body, and there would be a warped sense of what the soul is. And if I were to say you can know the soul through the body, I would be limiting the soul in such a way that I would have no sense of what it is. It's now the same thing with God. If a person walked around saying, God is so infinite and transcendent, we can never know anything about him, and da-da-da-da-da-da, are they going to have an accurate sense of God? If a person builds a sense of God from what they can derive from the world, are they going to have an accurate sense of God? Right? So that's, right? And that's because there's these two different things. There's the sovev and there's the mamale. Now we have to understand this a little bit deeper. Why is it that you have eyes for seeing, but you don't have a particular part of your body that's the healing part of the body? Like, why is that? Why doesn't God make it, or the soul make it? Whoever's responsible for this, to say, okay, every part of the soul should have a corresponding part of the body. Why not just do it that way? It's not that way, but why not?
It's too easy.
What?
It's too easy.
It's too easy. Like, imagine you're making a map. You're like, I have this terrain, and I'm going to make a map, and I'm not going to make any symbols on my map for mountains. Just leave that out. That wouldn't be very nice, would it?
Well, they're more complicated.
So get a better cartographer, makes better maps. Especially since we're dealing with the creator of the universe, God, who can do anything. Like, he could do that.
I don't get the map analogy.
A map is something, one thing corresponds to another. In a map,
But how does that correlate to our bodies?
because you have eyes, your soul sees. You have
Oh, so
ears,
like
everything
that's
maps
the
one
map.
onto the other, right?
Okay.
So, but then there's clearly things of our soul that don't map on, such as whatever it is that's making the body heal itself doesn't map onto a particular part of the body.
It's like blood and stuff.
No, corpses have blood too. They don't heal themselves.
Okay, why?
Moreover, you know what's really disturbing?
Yeah.
This, whatever it is in your soul that's healing the body, whatever it is about the soul that's healing the body, it's getting weaker over time. Did you know that things that like infants can recover from right away, or as like an outpatient
Like
procedure?
tonsil surgery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. When you start getting older and then you fall, it's like a major life event.
Right.
And when you fall as a kid, it's like whatever.
So you're saying that's our soul getting weaker.
I don't know, but the relationship between that part of the soul and the body is something's off about that.
Right.
Okay. Which, by the way, would explain why people die, if you think about it.
Why?
Because you do know how we continue to live physically. Every little part of your body dies. Pretty quickly, actually.
Yes.
So how do you stay alive?
They replenish it.
It replenishes, right? So you're actually, what we call like the ongoing life of an organism is really just healing.
Right.
True.
If you get worse at healing, you get worse at perpetuating.
It's tar.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So something gets messed up there. I don't know what it is. It might have to do with the sin of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But the point is, what is this thing in the soul that's causing the body to kind of replenish itself and heal itself? I don't know. It's not like it doesn't correspond to a particular function in the body that we can identify, like we see and we hear and we feel emotions. It doesn't work like that. Okay. If we're going to assume from it that things aren't just arbitrary, which is a good assumption, the reason why your body doesn't have certain things that correspond to certain parts of the soul is because those things aren't parts of the soul. In other words, like this. Okay. Have you ever been to a Shabbos meal? Mm-hmm. Okay. So now, let's say that you want to explain a Shabbos meal to people who've never been to one before. And you have a whiteboard. Okay? So, and what's the first thing you're going to do? Using the whiteboard to explain to others Shabbos meal.
Right on it.
Well, the first thing you need to know is, people who've never been to a Shabbos meal don't know this. Shabbos meals have a kind of order to them, have a structure to them.
Yeah.
Right? It's like very disturbing, like if you go to a Shabbos meal and you finish eating all the food and then you realize there's more courses, or reverse. One time my mother was at a Shabbos meal and the host said, "Would you like any more of the fish course?" And she said, "No, I'm fine." And then they benched. Then they had the grace after meals. You have to tell people like at least 2 courses to a Shabbos meal, right? So you think it's like Shabbos meal. So you put on the order. Okay. So let's do the Friday night meal, right? So first there's this thing called kiddush, right? Afterwards there's hamotzi, the bread, right? Challah. Afterwards there's the fish course. Afterwards there's a soup course. Afterwards there's a meat course, and afterwards there's dessert, and then there's the benching, the grace after meals, right? And then you guys again. Now within kiddush, we can break up kiddush. There's the singing beforehand, the shalom aleichem, whatever, right? And then there's some people have accustomed to bless their children, some people don't, right? You start breaking it up into things, and you can like map it out for them, right? And then there's the bread, and the bread. Okay, so there's the washing, and then they cut the bread, and they hand out the bread, and right. And then we say the soup and meat course, this already gets optional. Some people do 2, some people only do 1, right? So you've got like it all like mapped out on the board and like with the little subsections, and it's all there. And like the person's like, they figured it out. They now understand the kind of overall structure. They're ready to go. They're prepared for the Shabbos meal, right? Now, what does a Shabbos meal done properly feel like? Geschmack, which is just a Yiddish word for saying it feels good. Like what? Like the Shabbos, the feel of a Shabbos meal as a Shabbos meal. Not when you're going through Shabbos meal and talking about like really a Shabbos meal that feels Shabbostic. Can you put that on the board with a map? Why not? Because that's the thing itself.
Yeah.
You can map out the different parts and components. You can't talk, the thing itself is itself.
So you're saying that about health on itself?
What? Whatever it is that's causing the body to heal is not a part of the soul. It's the soul itself. Whatever's giving you a sense of like individual identity is not a part of the soul. It's the soul itself. You can make corresponding parts of the body for corresponding parts of the soul. You cannot make something that corresponds to the very soul, to the soul's being itself. That makes no sense. Right? To use a different analogy that illustrates the same point. If someone's never tasted chocolate, can you explain how chocolate tastes? If someone doesn't know the chemical formula of chocolate, could you make a bunch of symbols that correspond to the chemical formula of chocolate and teach it to them?
Yeah.
See the difference? You can, when you break something into aspects and components, you can have something else which ends up representing and manifesting, expressing, right? But the thing itself is itself. It's either it is it or isn't. Right? If the soul has a connection to the body, you have a sense of individual identity that walks around with that moves around with that body. In as much as the soul is connected to the body, that body will heal itself. Which is why when the body stops healing itself, there's also what we call death. Meaning the separation of the soul.
So then how do, like, platelet donations work? If you're If someone needs platelets and you're donating more of that.
Have you ever donated platelets to a dead person and they came back to life?
No.
Okay, so then apparently platelets are some part of the technicality of what actually is happening, but that's not. In other words, in everything there's what it is and what's making it be, and then there's the technicalities of how it works.
So there's something about the soul that's making the platelets.
Right. Which is why if you take a dead body and you put the platelets in, it just doesn't.
Does the soul start like leaving slowly over time?
Depends on the person.
So to be very technical, it's more like this. It's like it's if you would imagine like a rope, and it's made of a bunch of little strands, and it's holding something. Yeah. And if you keep cutting strands, one strand, it's getting weaker, but it still hold it. But there's a threshold point where you cut one too many strands, and then what happens?
Breaks.
So the body's ability to be attached to the soul is decreasing over time, which is why the body doesn't heal as well. But at a certain point, it drops below a certain threshold, and that's what we call death from old age.
Personal efforts can make a difference in that question.
Maybe, I don't know.
Meaning people die at generally when they reach a certain age, but not necessarily when they're less devoted to.
I never think it has anything to do with how righteous you are.
I'm saying that the soul's diminishment, or like.
No, I didn't say the soul's diminishment. I said the body's ability to receive the soul, to be connected to the soul. I didn't say it's a feature of the soul. That's a different thing. It's not really, it doesn't pertain to this so much right now. So things that come from the soul itself the body can never really be. The body might be affected by it. It might not be affected by it, but the body is not really the medium to express it because the body isn't the soul. Is the world something that can communicate, express, convey a sense of God? And the answer is, well, what do you mean? Do you mean a sense of God as God? Or do you mean something about God? If you mean something about God, the answer to that is, yeah. You mean God as God? The answer to that is, no. So when we speak about the fact that God as God has a relationship with the world, but the world in no way is a medium for us to get any sense of that, that was when we say that he is soviv. He surrounds the world. When we say that there are things about God that the world was designed to be able to express to some degree or another, and through those things we can know something about God, then we say God is Mamali. He fills the world. But that difference starts, so to speak, within a very basic difference. There are things about God, and then there's God. There are things about the soul, and there's the soul. The things about the soul can be expressed in different parts of the body. The soul itself, even if it's present in the body, it's still hidden. The body's not a way to know the soul.
But what about the soul expressing things because of the body?
Such as?
Like, for instance, someone might be more arrogant because they have blue eyes or something.
But they're not arrogant because they have blue eyes. They're arrogant and then they find something to justify it. That's how those things work. No one was like, I don't think there's anything that makes me more important than any other person. Oh, I have blue eyes. I must be God's gift to mankind. Like, that's just how it works. People have an underlying arrogance, wherever that
But
comes.
if they keep getting compliments on it.
So maybe that draws particular things out, right? In other words, right? In other words, if the body is a medium to reveal certain things about the soul, right? Well, you may be manipulating the body and its interaction with the world and its experiences. Maybe you're going to make the body better at expressing certain things and worse at other things, right? If you cut off a person's hands, they'll never be able to express their capacity to play piano. But on the other hand, if they practice piano and they have hands, and they practice, especially from a young age, right? Then the soul's capacity to be an amazing piano player will be manifest, right?
Why is the soul's ability to see less intrinsic than its ability to heal?
Let me ask you a question. If God forbid you had a friend who's blind, would you say they're somehow less of a person because they're blind? No. Okay. If you had a person who couldn't run, would you say some of them are less of a person because they can't run?
I think that the soul's sight is greater than its physical.
That could be true. I didn't say that the seeing through the eyes is expressing the sum totality of what the soul seeing could be. There's something about the soul that comes through there.
So like
But
expression we see is
right. But here's the thing: you don't get to that place. It's not like a person's like, oh, my friend is blind, but on some deeper level they have a total sight and therefore human. It's like, and if they can't see, somehow their life is they're less of a person because of that. They're less in the image of God. There's something less fundamentally significant about their very being because of that. No. So the soul itself is not really defined in those terms. Soul not defined in terms of the fact that it's a seeing being. It is a seeing being. That's true. That's something true about it. But that isn't who and what the soul is. Now, healing is different because healing is what? Healing is that the soul's in the body, right? In fact, when the body stops healing itself, you start to feel like your friend is going away, and it's sad, right? See what I'm saying? So I don't know what the soul is, but I know things about the soul. And because to know things about things, there's a way something else expresses. So now, if we think about it, when we know things about ourselves, we know things about others, we know things about God, we know things about. We never know ourselves, and we never know others, and we certainly never know God. Because how do we know? When one thing is being expressed through some kind of a medium, through a behavior, through a limb, through an event, through an experience, right? Which means that thing has to have some kind of way it corresponds, it correlates to the thing it's being, the thing that it's expressing. The true essence of who and what your soul is, the true essence of who and what someone else's soul is, the true essence of God, it's like the taste of chocolate. It either tastes like chocolate or it doesn't. So, why is this an important thing to know? Can you be a religious Jew and feel that God is a distant being, an alien? The answer is you can, provided that you live in a society there's enough social pressure to keep you observant, and or you believe that God's punishment is genuine and not worth messing with him. In other words, like this: if you have enough ulterior pressures to get you to be observant and religious, then you could do it. What if you live in a society that's open, and you don't have like this innate sense that God will smite you for stepping out of line? It's not going to. You can't feel motivated to something you're totally estranged from. Okay. Now you can go deeper. Even if you lived in such a society, I would argue you're still not religious, because it's nothing about you. It could be that you're technically doing the things that you're commanded to do, right? But inside, you're also not devoted to God. You're not connected to God. On the other hand, if God is somebody that you could, know what he is and figure him out, where does that put you relative to God? So before you answer that, think about this person. If you feel like you figured out another person, what does that do to the dynamics between you and that person? What? It equalizes?
I think it puts you above.
It puts you above. It puts you above. When you feel like you've figured a person out, how do you start interacting with them?
You know better.
You know better. I'll do this, they'll do that.
You
Right?
know them more than they know you.
Right? You start, like, an element of control starts to go into things. It's nice to be known. It feels very unpleasant when it feels like someone has like a map of you in their brain and they're figuring out which buttons to push to get which results they want. And when we feel that that's happening, we withdraw, we recoil, we fight back, right? You can't reduce me to what you can know. So that's true about another person. Any God that you could figure him out, at least in principle, even if you haven't figured him out, but at least there's this sense I could, if I were wise enough and deep enough, I could figure him out. Is that really a God that you should be worshiping? So you see there's like a fundamental problem in the notion of worshiping God. You have to feel close to God, like you know him in some way. Otherwise, where's your motivation to worshiping him? On the other hand, if he's that noble that you could figure him out, then you're the God in the picture. He's not. You're the one. You're the puppet master pushing his buttons, pulling his strings. There are many people who are fine believing in God and even observing Torah and mitzvahs because God conforms to the things that they have figured out are good and moral and important and significant. And in order for that all to make sense, there needs to be like an ultimate source of all of the goodness and kindness and beauty and whatever in the world. And therefore, there's a place for God. In other words, God is welcome into their life because what? He fits their. So who's really the God in their inner world? Who's themselves? On the other hand, if God is this big unknown of which I can know nothing, right? Totally alien, totally beyond, like, I don't have no connection. I can be pressured into doing things it says in the Torah, but that's about as far as it's going to go. So how do I have a sense that, on the one hand, I really can have a sense of God, and on the other hand, I could never have a sense of God? And that's where this idea comes in. In other words, you could know many, 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 many things about God. In fact, what Kabbalah and Chassidus say is that everything that's true about God finds expression in the world in some way. God created the world so that everything about him can be expressed. But that's only things that are true about him. What about him himself? There's no notion of something else capturing him, expressing him. And so if I can keep both of those at the same time, then I can feel what? I can feel very close to God, with also a sense that God is totally beyond me, which is the kind of sense you need to have to be a devout person. That makes sense? It's not like abstract philosophy. The goal here is not you learn these ideas, no, we know this concept, we know that concept. Putting a conceptual framework on things helps a person navigate things. Right? Is it important to be nice to your children?
Yes.
Is it important to discipline them?
Yes.
Does that create problems?
Yes.
Does having a more conceptual framework of what niceness is and the role it plays and what discipline is and the role it plays help you figure out how those things can work together? But the goal is not to have the theory of it. The goal is to actually... So the same thing here. The goal of making these categories of Sovev, God surrounds the world, Mamale, God fills the world, is to help us navigate these two opposite intuitions that we need on the one hand to have a sense we really are intimately familiar with God. On the other hand, it's impossible for us to ever know God. And we understand that things that are true about God can be expressed in the world, like things that are true about the soul could be expressed in the body. God himself can, so to speak, locate himself in the world, be present in the world, but will never be expressed to the world. Sovev Kaufmann really means that God himself is present in the world. And Mamale Kaufmann means that God finds expression in the world, through the world. Which means, going back to like the soul and the body, your soul's in your body. So if someone has an interest in having a relationship with you, they need to go where your body is and they interact with you through the body. But what they know of you is not you yourself. What they know of you is those things about you that come through your body. And on a deeper level, it's even true of ourselves. Which leads to a very interesting statement that it says in Kabbalah. It says that the highest level of divinity, of godliness, God himself, so to speak, is called by an acronym, Radla, which stands for Aramaic words, Resha Deloi Isyada, which literally means the head which is not known. The unknowable head.
What is it?
Resha, the head, Delo, that is not, Isyada, known. The head that is not known. Okay. And what that means is, can anyone know God? No. But what Kabbalah actually says is, it's not just that it's not known to others, it also doesn't know itself. Because think about it, what have we just discovered in this whole process? Knowing is an external phenomenon. Knowing is the way, like think about it, when we say you know yourself, right, what does that mean? You've done things, you've experienced things, and through that you come to know yourself. You have to go out to come back in. You're not real, like, your being yourself is much more absolute and fundamental than your knowing yourself. You understand what I'm saying? Like when you're 5 and you think you know yourself, what you know is the stuff about you that can be expressed in the life experience of a 5-year-old. That's it. And when you're 75, it's the same thing. But your sense that I am me, which isn't really knowing, it's more of a sense of being, that is you. I don't know what it is. And it doesn't, and you're not less yourself because it can't be put in terms of knowing. And so the deeper idea is not simply that, we can't know God because we're limited beings. Is that on this level of Sovev, on this level of God being present in the world, knowing is not really a relevant thing. It's not about knowing. Right? When you want to know yourself, what you really want to know things about yourself. Your very being yourself, you are yourself. And as long as you're physically alive, you're here in this world. And when you're important to your parents, and to your spouse, and to your children, and to your friends, ultimately what's supposed to be important? The things about you or you? So what's supposed to be important to us? The things about God or God? God. Does that mean that the things about God are irrelevant? If you're important to your parents and your spouse and your children and your friends, does that mean the stuff about you has no meaning to them? Or on the contrary, because there's stuff about you, it's important to them. If someone is important to you, how they feel, how they function, what they value also becomes important to you, right? So if God is important to us, then the things about him are also important to us. Now, did I tremendously oversimplify these concepts? Okay, now what did I say? There were 3 goals. What were the 3 goals? To explain the concepts. I did that. Have a sense of why they're relevant. Did we do that? What was the 3rd? Okay, ready? There is a concept in Torah called 2 which are 4. 2 which are 4. So I'll give you when you offer a sacrifice in the temple, one of the important parts of the sacrifice, the final stage of the sacrifice, is to put the blood on the altar. So the animal slaughtered, then the blood is received in a vessel and taken to the altar and put on the altar. Most sacrifices, the way the blood is put on the altar is that it is thrown onto the altar. So they have a pitcher of blood from the animal, and they throw it on the altar. And many sacrifices, it says that the blood has to go around the altar. So how do you throw it and make it go around? So, because you need it to be in all 4 corners. So the way this is done is that the blood is thrown on 2 corners. And when you throw the blood at 2 corners, what happens? It splashes on all 4 sides, right? The corners are at diagonals. Does that make sense? So, in the siddur, if you open up the siddur, and there's a section where it goes through the sacrifice in the beginning, and it says, for instance, the burnt offering, its blood. So here, its blood. 2 sprinklings were made at opposite corners of the altar. That adds that in brackets, so as to constitute 4. In Hebrew, it just says 2 which are 4. So the idea that there can be 2 things, but when you really think about it, each of them actually contains 2 elements, so it's really 4. And this is an expression that actually shows up in other areas of Judaism. So it shows up in the laws of leprosy or tzaras, which is not really leprosy. It shows up in many areas, this expression, 2 which are 4. Sova Mamale are 2 which are 4. Because I can take Mamale and I can divide it and say there's actually a Sovev dimension of the Mamale and a Mamale dimension of the Mamale. There is a Mamale dimension of the Sovev and a Sovev dimension of the Sovev. Which means everything we just said about this class, we could focus in on just the parts of your soul that find expression in the body because there's correlate, like seeing, and we could take that and divide it into these 2 ideas as well. We could take your soul itself, which cannot be known, and we could divide it into these two ideas as well, which means how many do we have now? 4. Are we going to do that today? No. But we're going to do one, but that's an important part of this. I'm going to simply give you one little thing, so those aren't just words. The soul sees, right? Do you know what seeing is if there's no body? True, the body on its own can't see. But what is seeing like if there's no body? What does it mean the soul on its own sees? Do you have any idea what that is? So when you know the soul is a seeing being, do you know something about the soul or do you not know something about the soul? Or in some sense, both? We're going to end there. That's one route we could go down. Now let's go another thing. Is the soul one thing or many things?
Many things.
Really? So God takes God takes a bunch of different parts and glues them together, and that's how he makes the soul? I'm asking you.
One thing with like many facets.
It's one thing with many facets. How does it have many facets?
It does.
Physical things have many facets because if you break them down, they're actually made of many parts put together. That's how, the reason why physical things have many facets is because they're actually composite of many parts. How is it that the soul, or let's go back to God, right? Because remember, we used the soul's analogy for God. God is compassionate. But do you know what compassion is outside of the context of a created world? So do you really know what it means that God is compassionate?
No.
Okay, now let's go another thing. Is God one? Fundamental principle of Judaism is God is one, doesn't have different parts or aspects. But wasn't that whole explanation that I gave kind of predicated on the fact that there's God himself and the things about him?
Yeah.
So that needs to be dealt with.
Oh my God.
We could go on. This idea is very important, very good. But if you think it really seriously through, you know what you discover? You could spend you could know. Now you don't know anything. Now you don't know anything. There are two types of approaches to things. One is where a person wants to know, and one is where a person doesn't want to be ignorant. You know what the difference is? A person doesn't want to be ignorant when they discover that something, they know 0.1% of something, feels like it's better to just ignore the topic altogether. Because no matter how much you deal with this topic, I'll always feel ignorant. The person who values knowing, if they know 0.01% of something, they're like, wow, I know 0.01% of this. Maybe I can know 0.02% of it. That would be even better.
Oh, okay.
See the difference?
Yeah.
Okay? So you can take this concept, this framing, again, and again, we've got the analogy we've got with God, and there's all these holy texts, and you can spend literally the rest of your life delving deeper into understanding this in a more mature and sophisticated way. And ultimately, what does that do? It brings these two things together, a sense that God is intimately close and also unknowably far. And it's not something you can ever say, I have totally figured out, but it's not that you don't know anything. You can know more and more and more and more and more.
Right.
Now, recommendation. Next time you daven, next time you pray, before you pray, spend a minute or two thinking about this question. Do I know who I'm talking to? And you can use this as a way to frame that question. And the point is not to get to a clear answer. The point is to take the question seriously. And you'll walk away with, in some sense I do, and in some sense I don't. And if you do that, what do you think that'll do to the experience of davening? If you do that sincerely, not in a long time, just sincerely for 1 or 2 minutes, take that question, do I really know who I'm talking to?
You know, bring me closer to him.
It'll do both.
And
Right?
And put me farther and farther.
And so will you feel a strong, and so now the idea that you're standing in front of God and He's listening to you takes on some more,
I mean, yeah.
more meaning, right? Okay. By the way, that's part of the code of Jewish law says that before one prays, one should contemplate God. So now you have training for doing that. All right, that was our last concepts in Chassidus. Now we have questions and answers tomorrow. So come up with questions, because otherwise we'll sit here in awkward silence.